It began on a night that felt strangely heavy, as if the air itself knew a secret long before anyone else did, and long before Mia would ever begin to realize that the life she was living was being rewritten behind her back. From the outside, everything looked perfect. The warm lights inside their apartment, the laughter that often echoed between the walls, and Ethan's gentle smile that seemed to promise forever. People always said they were the kind of couple that made others believe in love again, the couple that looked unbreakable, the couple that would never be touched by betrayal. But Ethan had become distant in small, almost invisible ways: late replies, longer work hours, the way he avoided eye contact when Mia asked if something was wrong. And yet, every time she looked at him, part of her still wanted to believe in what they once were, ignoring the uncomfortable feeling that something dark was slowly forming beneath the surface. Mia had always trusted Ethan more than she trusted herself, so when the signs began to build, she first blamed stress, then timing, then herself, because when you love someone deeply, your first instinct is always to protect the relationship even from the truth. She noticed new cologne she hadn't bought, a softness in Ethan's voice when he was on his phone, the kind of gentle tone he only used with her before. She noticed the way he guarded his messages like fragile glass, never putting his phone down, where she could see laughing quietly with his back turned, as if happiness had suddenly become something private, something she no longer had access to. And although every instinct inside her began to whisper that something wasn't right, she swallowed those instincts, buried them under hope, and kept pretending they were still the same story, still the same promise, still the same love. But fate has a way of forcing truth into the open, whether you are ready for it or not. And the night Mia finally saw the message, the world she lived in shattered without making a sound. Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from whatever lies he had been carrying, and his phone lit up with a name Mia didn't recognize, followed by a sentence that felt like a blade cutting through everything she believed in. "I miss you already. When can I see you again?" Her hands shook, her heart raced, and for a moment she couldn't breathe, because this wasn't just suspicion anymore, this was betrayal, undeniable and alive, staring straight at her. She didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't collapse the way people in movies do. Instead, she felt a strange calm wrapping around her, a cold realization that love was no longer something safe. And she knew anything she did from this moment forward had to be controlled, quiet, and stronger than the pain she was feeling. Mia read everything: the messages, the calls, the photos, the memories Ethan had been building with someone else while still pretending to love her. She realized this hadn't been a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a choice he had made again and again, and that hurt differently. Not because she wasn't enough, but because she had been loyal to a man who didn't deserve loyalty, faithful to someone who traded her honesty for selfish excitement. She let Ethan sleep because betrayal deserves silence, not chaos. She needed time to think, to plan, to decide how a woman who had once loved with her whole heart would now protect herself with the same strength. She didn't want dramatic confrontations, didn't want shouting, didn't want tears. What she wanted was clarity, control, and to let Ethan feel what it meant to lose something real. So she began observing him carefully, the way someone studies a stranger, learning the rhythm of his lies, noticing when he disappeared, when his smile wasn't meant for her, when he pretended love while his mind was somewhere else. And as the days passed, she transformed. Her silence became powerful. Her eyes no longer held softness. They carried knowledge. Ethan sensed something had changed, but he didn't know what. He tried to be charming again, bringing flowers, making sudden romantic gestures, trying to revive a version of her that no longer existed. Because Mia wasn't the same woman anymore. She wasn't broken. She was awakening. And while Ethan thought he still controlled the story, he had no idea that Mia was now writing the next chapter on her own terms, with a calm heart, a steady mind, and a quiet storm forming behind her eyes, ready to change everything in a way he would never forget, a way that would make him realize what betrayal truly costs. The strange calm she carried didn't fade. It only grew stronger. And that was what frightened Ethan the most, even if he didn't understand why. There was something unsettling about the silence of a woman who used to explain every feeling, every thought, every fear, because silence meant she no longer needed him to listen. Mia began carefully stepping back from the relationship without making noise, slowly reclaiming pieces of herself he never deserved to hold, acting as though everything was normal while quietly unraveling every thread that tied her to him. She smiled when he spoke, nodded when he lied, and allowed him to believe he was still safe inside the illusion he had created. But in reality, Mia was making decisions. She gathered every truth, every message, every proof of betrayal, not to explode with anger, but to draw the final line with undeniable clarity. She started spending more time outside, reconnecting with her world, her career, her friends, the parts of herself she had neglected while pouring too much love into someone who didn't value it. The more she stepped away, the more Ethan started to panic. He didn't understand why he suddenly felt like the one being left behind, why Mia's eyes no longer held the warmth that always forgave him, why her voice no longer trembled when she spoke. He tried harder, called more, asked more questions, touched her shoulder gently as if physical closeness could erase emotional distance, but nothing worked because once trust is destroyed, the space it leaves behind can never be filled by the same person who broke it. One evening, as they sat across from each other at their dining table, Ethan finally asked, "Are we okay?" And Mia looked at him with the calmest expression he had ever seen on her, an expression that said she wasn't afraid anymore. She simply replied, "We will be," and that answer comforted him for a moment, because he still believed we included him. He realize that we now meant Mia and the life she was about to rebuild without him. She chose the day carefully, not out of cruelty, but out of respect for herself. She waited until she felt nothing, no anger, no heartbreak, no shaking hands, just certainty. That morning, the apartment was quiet, filled with soft light, the kind of peaceful atmosphere that should belong to a happy home, but instead it became the stage for truth. She placed his phone on the table, unlocked with knowledge she had gained long ago, and opened the messages he believed were hidden. When Ethan walked in, laughing about something meaningless, he stopped cold the second he saw the screen glowing like a confession he could no longer outrun. His face changed, the color drained, his voice stumbled as he tried to explain, to deny, to twist reality the way he always had. But Mia didn't raise her voice once. She spoke slowly, steadily, telling him what she knew, how long she had known, and how deeply his betrayal had wounded something that would never heal the same again. He apologized desperately, promised change, promised loyalty, promised love, promised everything too late, and for the first time, he was the one begging for the relationship to survive. But betrayal births a different kind of strength, one that doesn't scream or seek revenge through cruelty. It simply refuses to stay where love no longer lives. Mia told him she was done, not as a threat, not as a dramatic goodbye, but as a decision that had already been finalized in her heart. She made it clear that walking away wasn't weakness, it was power. It was choosing herself over lies. It was refusing to let someone who broke her decide her worth. Ethan cried, he pleaded, he asked for another chance, but she had already given him chances he never even realized he had wasted. The worst punishment for him wasn't rage or chaos. It was losing the version of Mia who once adored him without hesitation, and knowing he would never see that version again. She didn't throw things, didn't destroy memories, didn't curse his name. Instead, she packed her life with dignity, each movement controlled, each breath steady, while Ethan watched the future he assumed would always be his slip through his fingers. She walked out of the door without looking back, because sometimes the strongest act of revenge is not staying to witness someone suffer, but allowing them to live with the consequences of what they destroyed. Time moved forward, and Mia didn't disappear into sadness. She rebuilt herself, rediscovered her worth, and every day she grew lighter, freer, stronger. Meanwhile, Ethan lived with an emptiness he couldn't escape, haunted not by what Mia did to him, but by what he did to himself. He now understood what he had lost, not just a girlfriend, not just a partner, but a love that was rare, loyal, and irreplaceable. And that was the silent revenge Mia never had to plan, letting him realize that his greatest mistake was betraying the one person who would have chosen him every single time, while she finally chose herself.